my Christian Electrician hasn't filed income tax since 2008. It's always interesting when I meet Christians who are refusing to pay and they're well educated, and I always try to bring these topics up, and because we were talking about herb in the Bible, and he's all down with that. Super smart guy, as many electricians are. Like, of all the trades, being an electrician is the most high risk and tricky, because there's relatively speaking, when you have a pool, there's only so many circuits of water, so to speak, and it's much easier to trace when something goes wrong, and rarely do people die. Alternatively, with electric, it's much more complicated because you have more joints and that sort of thing. So I've always stayed away from doing electrical work unless it's simple stuff like a ceiling fan and that sort of thing. So we've been wiring the School of the Prophets, and there was a couple circuits that we're having trouble tracing, and we had the electrician come out, and I just started talking to him about Exodus and the usury-free Jubilee, and how man has no authority to make law, and talking about the deeply controversial Exodus, defying acts of Caesar type of topics that sadly are rarely spoken of between Christians. And I just want to make this all normal talk. where we should talk about this stuff and not talk about the elections and the new evil thing that the guys like. There's always evil stuff that Pharaoh is going to do. Pharaoh is always going to be poisoning and pulling false flags and engineering shootings and doing inoculations and creating diseases and promoting hate and war and division. They're always going to be doing that. So what'll happen is there's really a great growth that I'm seeing right now of more and more Christians being willing to discuss these very controversial topics, even so far as like 9/11 truth, right? So what happens is they'll talk about that, like false flag events like 9/11 truth, or the USS Liberty, or Gulf of Tonkin, or Pearl Harbor, or whatever, right? So there's one level of truth where you're just saying, hey, these guys are evil. And then if it's, inoculations, oh, these guys are evil, or it's GMO, or it's whatever the topic may be. Like, the point is all of those things are symptoms. The root cause evil is that we are whoring with them, that we're working for them, that we're using their money, that we're paying their debts. Deuteronomy 28:43 talks about the curse of the moneylenders. So basically, the source of evil in this world, this is very, very important. The source of evil in this world is from Yah. He creates it all. The omnipotent Yah, the Lord of hosts, meaning when he says hosts, that means he's the host and MC of this history, all of these stories, all of these events, everything that's going on, the good and the bad, is from Yah. The devil is from Yah. Caesar, Pharaoh, the moneylenders, the synagogue of Satan Jews, all of the evil and the perpetrators of evil, the Pope, the Jesuits, the Council on Foreign Relations, whatever group, the Federal Reserve, all of those wicked, evil groups have been empowered by Yah in order to chasten us into obedience. They're Yah's whips. Our Father, He uses both positive and negative reinforcement. He uses both the carrot and the stick. And He wants us to return to Him, just like the Exodus story, where we only obey Him, we only fear Him, we only tithe to Him, we only use His money, we only issue bonds to Him, and we don't issue bonds to Rothschild and Esau. We only work for, worship. Worship and obey and believe all mean the same thing. Worship, obey, and believe, and tithe and render, all of those words effectively mean the same. So if you believe Caesar is God, you're going to tithe and fear and have Stockholm syndrome for Caesar, who's our abuser, right? And the reason why Caesar is abusive, because Caesar is empowered by Yahweh in order for us to get so sick of our apathy, get so sick of our own self-limitation, so sick of our inability to visualize a better future for our children, so sick of people just only talking about false flags and just complaining about Caesar. You know, like that saying, for every 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil, there's one who strikes the root. There's one who's hacking at the root. Just like the Bob Marley song, Small Axe. And the root is the love of money. It's the money's lenders' monopolization of the money, so that they can hire these puppet governments with puppet politicians and puppet police and puppet military and puppet courts, that a tiny, tiny minority of these money lenders, identified by Jesus, who He whipped, who turned His Father's house of worship into a den of thieves, turning the whole thing that was given to us, this beautiful temple that we live in, they turned it where everything's commoditized. They turned everything into a market. Everything that Yah gave to us for free back in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, it was all free. They didn't have to work for it. Back then, they didn't even need to grow their own food. It was just pluck it off the tree. As long as they plucked it off the tree of life. And if they continue to only pluck from the tree of life, they would have no sin, they would have no death, they would have no curses and captivity and mark and tribulation. So so the trick is gathering up all the men, the mighty men of Israel, who have the stones to see this, to see how we're being duped, how we're being punked, that we're not acting like noble kings and priests. We're not taking responsibility to be biblical judges of tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands, because if we implemented that government, people would gravitate for us to seek us for our government, meaning Yah's government. And they would be doing that because they would see, by us obeying the perfect law of liberty, Judges of Tens, the usury-free Jubilee, where we all issue money in the form of a tithe to Yahweh, or we don't even need money at all. You just tithe with your produce, your products, and your services. But we all bring something to the party. We all bring something to the feast. If you grow cannabis, you bring the herb. And here's the thing: is these feasts are gonna get off the chain awesome once we start burning herb, just like they were doing at Acts and Pentecost. You know, speaking Bob Marley in tongues, having direct revelation with Yahweh, where Yahweh shows up to our feasts of the Lord, because he wants for us to be only obedient to him. And when we do that, he comes close. Because when we put Caesar and Pharaoh and Rothschild and the money and the fear of the IRS into our temple, we're pushing Yah out, because you can't have the Holy Spirit occupy the same space with these devils and these devils' doctrines where man can make law. So that's the whole point, is to overcome our self-limitation that we can't do it. So I was effectively having that same conversation, what I'm speaking to you right now, with my electrician. He's like, yeah, like, I haven't paid, and I smoke it. He actually has a disability, and he's got a lot of pain, so he uses cannabis for the pain, and he uses at night after work, and that's part of his communion with Yah. He uses it to speak with Yah already. And I never knew that. I've known the guy for a good 15 years or so, and it was awesome, because I haven't filed since 2011, and he hasn't filed since 08. And all I can express is, because I have not filed any paperwork or done anything unique or whatever, I just say I don't want to contribute to this wicked system. I don't want to help finance this intergenerational warfare on the people of the world, on the Palestinians, on the Muslims, on the Jews who are in captivity right now too, because the Jews in Israel and worldwide, they're debt slaves to these same guys too. I actually used to have a guy who built above ground pools with me who was Jewish. So they're slaves to this whole system too. And, you know, I understand that the synagogue of Satan and Hollywood and the Federal Reserve are controlled by the synagogue of Satan. It all comes down to, the solution to all of this isn't about us just complaining about it and posting every day about the false flag of the day. By just posting another, like the 50th meme about how vaccinations are poison, right? That's not how you do it. Like I said before, for every 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil, there's one who struck the root. Who struck the root? Jesus. Yahshua struck the root. He went after the money lenders, the root of all evil. He went after the head, right? It says in the curse of Deuteronomy 28:43, says if you fail to obey me, Yah says, the alien among you shall rise higher and higher, and you're going to go down lower and lower. He's going to become the head, and you're going to become the tail, talking to the Israelites. He's going to lend money to you. You're not going to lend money to him. So there's a direct correlation between the money lenders and who's the head and who's the tail. Well, in the blessings, alternatively, if we obey Yah, we will be the head. We will be the kings and the priests and the judges and in the royal priesthood. We will do that. And the way you transition to that is you have to divorce Pharaoh. You have to divorce the money lenders and Rothschild and Caesar and Uncle Sam, the flag, the anthem, whoever your sports team is. I divorced the Dallas Cowboys. I hope they lose. I hope the NFL goes out of business. I hope the United States government and all of the constitutionalists and all those deceived liars, that all of it goes out of business, and all of those people who believe in it, that they see that Yah opens their eyes up to the vanity and the lie that man can make law, because man cannot make law. And my electrician, I gave him a high five right when he said it, like, oh, 8, awesome, right? So now I know him. Oh, he's Jedi, man. Like, that means, he's like, you know, you can go to jail for that. Yeah, I just like, my kind of man. And you know what? I wouldn't care what color he was. I wouldn't even care. I would sooner meet a Muslim who's ready to stand up against these devils than a Christian who licks their boots, a so-called Christian, because here's the deal. You can't be a constitutionalist. You cannot be a constitutionalist and be a Christian, because that's double-minded. You can't have a little bit of Baal worship and a little bit of Yahweh worship. Yah will not have it. Separate, holy means to separate. And Yah has my mind, but I realize that I'm operating in this system of commerce. I understand that I still need to join with like-minded brothers and sisters who want to have this exodus. And that's why I so appreciate you guys watching this is, you know, over the summer when we were doing these videos, we might, you know, a lot of times we would get nobody. We would have videos where Jim and I are talking, and it would be like one guy to start, and like everybody would just drop off. and by the time we're done, like we're doing a video for like an hour, and nobody, and nobody. Nobody's watching for like a whole hour, and then I take it because I know the content is real important. I'll download it and I'll put it up onto YouTube, and like after like 3 or 4 months, like 5 people have watched it. But I know the content, I know the concept is very important, and the concept that's so paramount for us to learn is this idea that we cannot get into Yahweh's kingdom. We can't even see his kingdom without being born again. And you're not truly, nobody, none of us is truly born again unless we're like Moses and Paul, where we go from obedient servants and persecutors of the true believers and of the biblical Israelites of the Bible, persecutors of the Christians, those anointed with the cannabis of Exodus. You go from being persecutors to changing teams, so much so that you're ready and prepared to die and be martyred like Moses and Aaron and Joshua and Caleb, Samuel, David, all the way through up to the apostles and Jesus and John the Baptist, right? All the way through. The whole history of the Bible is the arc of a people who are going on a hero's journey. And when you hear these ingredients, you know, if I could speak to you guys, like, all right, who hasn't filed their income tax, right? When I hang out with some other guys that are other prophets that speak this way, that speak Yahweh's kingdom into reality, because that's what we encourage one another. We prophets are to chasten one another. We are to dominionize the land and rebuke false doctrines like the Constitution. Like if I met Pastor Chuck Baldwin, brother Pastor Baldwin, I love you and I love that you fight and you understand that the wickedness of this system, but he says everything's good, but the Constitution's good. And I say, no, the Constitution is not good. Because the Constitution is rebellion in the Garden of Eden. The Constitution comes from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, where man does what's right in his own eyes, thinking himself to be a god. That's what the founders, that's what it means to be a Freemason. That's what it means to be Talmudic. That's what it means to be an anarchist. Because the anarchists don't surrender to Yahweh's law. They just want to make up their own morality. And that's why the biblical government, our law, the perfect law of liberty, the law written on the Liberty Bell about a jubilee and all the land being returned to Yahweh's servants, that's what's up. That history is our future. And it's time for his people. If my people who are called by my name, who are his people that are called by his name? The holy ones, the separated people, right? Isn't our God the holy God? The Yah that's separate, his morality is completely antithetical to this reality. This system is a system where men and women rule over, men and children rule over the men. Excuse me, I'm misspeaking. Women and children rule over the men. That's part of cultural Marxism. Well, cultural Marxism is just newspeak for rebellion to the patriarch of the Bible. The patriarch of the Bible is Yahweh and his son Yeshua and all of the sons of Abraham. The whole thing is about a patriarch. All of the genealogy comes through the men. Meanwhile, the Talmudists, the fake synagogue of Satan Jews, they track their genealogy through the mother. Well, it was the synagogue of Satan Jews who financed the writing of the U.S. Constitution, because it's the tradition of the elders. It's just man creating law and say, hey, we the people can make laws from now on. Well, that would never fly with Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve, why would it fly with Yah now? It doesn't. So when you have people that are moving away, if my people who are called by my name, the holy God, the separate God, the set apart God, the God that's in the wilderness because he can't stand this Babylonian Sodom and Gomorrah constitutionalistic mess, this hot mess of sin and licentiousness, of usury, rule by money lenders, where everything has been commoditized. They call it, capitalism is just newspeak for usury. Capitalism is newspeak for rule by money and money monopoly and money lenders. That's all capitalism in. And communism is just the Hegelian dialect to it. And all the other isms like fascism, they're just all this stuff is just made up doctrines of men. They're the leaven of the scribes and the Pharisees. So everybody will post about that. You're kind of on Facebook and people are complaining like, oh, it's wicked and we're getting taxed and our money, everything's going the wrong way. Well, when you meet somebody who's willing to stand up against all that and has the audacity, who has the chutzpah, who has the courage to stop fearing Caesar and then rather fear Yahweh, that's a big, big step. So I hope everybody has that level, or are they growing it? They're working on flexing that muscle. So thanks for tuning in, Cindy, David, Mark, Moses, Scott Carper, Paul Smith, William Raditz, Israel, Salazar, Daryl Payne. Scott Carper said, isn't all his money? It's all Caesar's money, for sure. But the point is we're not supposed to use Caesar's money. We're not supposed to pay Caesar's debts. We're only supposed to, this is a transition. This is what we're going to do here in the future. John Beza, Brent Sorensen, Nicholas Cox, Robert Weltz. So I don't know. I know Nick Cox in Denver. I hope it's you. Brent Vanderwall. What's up, Brent? Joseph Soto, Bass Zedemeyer. One of your best videos yet. Great stuff. Glories to Yah. Thank you for the encouragement. My wife, Robin. Hey, baby. Hey, sis. Linda Martian, Enrico, Henry, Mario. Thanks for tuning in, Chase Chambliss. And I got to mail a letter. Talk soon.